Hey friends, my name is Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm sitting in front of my nonfiction bookshelf and we'll be talking about the 12 nonfiction books that I want to read in 2022. Last year I made this video for the books that I want to read in 2021. It's still my most watched and popular video, which is very interesting to me. Unfortunately, I only read 3 of the 12 books. I still really want to read the other 9 that weren't read from that list, but this year I'm choosing different ones. If you watched my goals video, you know that I'm trying to read less. I definitely want to read at least 1 nonfiction a month, which will be easy because I already kind of do that anyways. Also, in my video where I talked about what authors I want to read in 2022, I mentioned a bunch of nonfiction authors. I'm not really including, I don't think, any of those on this list because I'm trying to talk about other books and not always the same books. But my nonfiction TBR is very large and I'd love to read all of those books. But I picked a few to talk about here today. The first 3 are true memoirs. I really need to read Wild by Cheryl. There's been a movie adaptation of this story. This is about a woman who walks the entire Pacific Crest Trail, basically the bottom of California all the way up to Washington on the west coast of the US, and this is just her story of picking herself up from rock bottom. I have watched the movie forever ago. I think I enjoyed it. Definitely want to finally check this one off the list. The other memoir that I want to pick up is A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier by Ishmael Beah. Ishmael was from Sierra Leone and he was captured and raised as a boy soldier. He was able to escape and move to the US. From my understanding, this book is him like processing what that experience was like. I've heard good things and I would love to dive into and learn about the story from his perspective. And then one that I'm really ashamed I didn't get to this year because I know I'm gonna love it, and that is I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot by the Taliban. Just as the tagline says, she was shot by the Taliban for, I believe, riding the bus to school, and she is the youngest nominee for a Nobel Peace Prize. I've seen some interviews of her here and there on the internet, but I would love to actually read her story. I then have 3 World War II nonfictions. The first one is also another really popular one that was made into a movie, Unbroken by Hillenbrand. I've also watched the movie when it came out forever ago and I can't fully remember the details. This story is all about Louis Zamperini, who was, I believe, a prisoner of war in Japan during World War II. I know that he had to survive in open water, I believe, when his plane was shot down. If I'm remembering correctly, I think he also battles alcoholism and there is an element of faith in here. I feel like I remember him watching like a Billy Graham program and he comes to God that way. Maybe I could be totally remember things wrong, but really it's a story of being broken and then coming to terms with his experience and then ultimately forgiving his captors. I know this one's gonna be amazing and I just need to read it. Wow, it got really bright. Sunshine. The next one I mentioned in my most recent book haul, and that is Irena's Children by Tilar J. Mazzeo. This is about Irena, who was a social worker and she was able to get access to the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland, and I believe that she was able to safely smuggle out a lot of children, potentially change their identities and secretly get them out of the ghetto. And just like I said in the book haul, this sounds like my exact kind of book. The next one I am so excited about, and that is The Mouse Complete Series by Art Spiegelman. This is a graphic novel and it's technically a nonfiction, even though the main characters are depicted as mice. From my understanding, this is a story about a father and a son, and the mice are supposed to represent Jews and then the cats are supposed to represent the Nazis. And I think the only person on BookTube that I follow that has talked about it and praised it is Shelley Swearingen. I haven't heard anyone else mention it, but I've seen this one around as a top graphic novel to read and as a top nonfiction World War II story to read. I'm very intrigued by this reading experience. If I'm honest, the graphic style looks a bit cluttered and messy, but I'm sure that it will still be a very interesting read. Next, I'll talk about 3 kind of like crime-ish books. The first one being Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is one of the first books that I got from Goodwill since starting BookTube, and I've been meaning to read it all year. I actually started it and got to page like 60 and then just put it down and got distracted and started reading something else. I put this on my summer TBR. Never got to it, but I do really want to read it, mainly because there's a movie adaptation coming out and Leonardo DiCaprio is starring in it. But this also just sounds like a very interesting story, interesting perspective. Basically, the story follows the Osage Nation, which is a group of indigenous people living in Oklahoma, and they were very, very wealthy. And then one by one, they start dying off and mysteriously disappearing, and the FBI is investigating the case and trying to figure out why they're dying and what's going on. The next one I've heard good things about, and that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara. I love that nonfiction titles explain what they're all about. It's about a woman's search for the Golden State Killer, which was never apprehended, never found. It was mysterious who he was, what he did, but then I believe that she uncovers his identity and the mystery is solved, potentially. Not entirely sure, but I've definitely heard this nonfiction being praised and that it is a really interesting true crime and that you're kind of like getting through it quickly and want to know what happens. This next one sounds tough but so incredible, and that is The Sound of Gravel by Ruth Werner. This is about a very religious, I believe Mormon, but I could be wrong on that, just very religious, strict kind of cult community where the author is the 39th child of her father's 42 children. I'm assuming he has multiple wives, polygamy. It's giving me Educated vibes, which is one of my favorite memoirs, so would love to read this. And I know a few people read this in 2021 and really loved it, so I would love to get to this one. All right, these next two are a bit random, but I really want to read. The first one is Woman Code: Perfect Your Cycle, Amplify Your Fertility, Supercharge Your Sex Drive, and Become a Power Source by Alyssa Vitti. This one comes highly recommended from personal friends of mine. This one's all about your cycle mainly and hormones and what's going on in your body, and basically as a woman understanding what the heck is going on. And I think with this kind of book, the goal is to have the right information and then be able to make better decisions about your body, particularly when it comes to food or supplements, figuring out what your body needs during certain times of the month. Would love to read this. It comes highly recommended. This is actually a copy that I'm borrowing from a friend of mine, so I need to read it and return it. This next one I'm actually very excited about, even though I'm not gonna have a child in 2022, but it is bringing up Bebe, maybe, with the little apostrophe things. One American Mother Discovers the Wisdom of French Parenting by Pamela Druckerman. This one I want to read because even though I'm not having, babies this year, they're potentially maybe happening in the near future, so would love to get a jump start on reading some books about kids. But my sister-in-law, my brother and his wife, she is actually yesterday was her due date, so she will give birth at any moment at this time. And I actually found another copy of this book in a little free library, and I included it in their Christmas gift. And they enjoy reading and traveling and have been to Paris before. I thought that this would be like a fun little book to include, and I would love to read it alongside her, even though she will be a mother that just gave birth and I am yet to be one. But this one just really sounded interesting and fun, and like I would learn some things. It says, when American journalist Pamela Druckerman had a baby in Paris, she didn't aspire to become a French parent. Then she noticed that French children sleep through the night at 2 or 3 months old. They eat braised leeks. Their parents sip coffee while the kids play by themselves. And French kids are still boisterous, curious, and creative. Why? So without having kids, my husband and I naturally love to talk about what kind of parents we'll be, what we will do, and we see, friends having kids and how they're raising them, and we're always like, well, we would do that, or no, we wouldn't do that, and no, we want our kid to be this way. I know that it's much easier said than done, and it's very tough to be a parent, but I would love to see what kind of advice and maybe things are in this book. Hope to read it this year. I think it would be a fun read, and maybe I'll pick some stuff up from it. You never know. All right, here we are at the end. The last book that I would love to read in 2022 is How Not to Read the Bible: Making Sense of the Anti-Women, Anti-Science, Pro-Violence, Pro-Slavery, and Other Crazy Sounding Parts of Scripture by Dan Kimball. I have been making my way through the Old Testament in the Bible for a very long time, and I personally have just struggled with reading certain parts of it, being like, why? Why is this in here? Why would God allow that to happen? And I think some parts of it for sure is just my not understanding the context of the story and what's going on. But also, yeah, there's some weird stuff in the Bible, and I would love to read this book and be able to maybe understand and have better context around why it's in there and what I'm reading. And I believe I first heard about this book from a pastor of mine, so it comes highly recommended and I would love to read it. That's it. Those are the 12 nonfiction books that I hope to get to in 2022. Please let me know if you read any of them. Please let me know what your top 3 nonfiction books are if you read nonfiction for the next year. I would love to know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and tuning in, friends. I appreciate all the love. Thanks for spending time with me today, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye.